with my colleague Michelle tonight.
Hello. So my name is Michelle. I'm a child life specialist. I've been working with families and teens for 18 years here at McMaster Children's Hospital, and I am actually a mom of a teenager as well.
Okay. Do you want to flip the slides, Michelle? You're more familiar with what you've set up
Sure.
here.
Okay, so this is us, and we'll get started. So what is stress? It is a normal part of life. It's a feeling of emotional or physical pressure. It can be helpful at times. I know for myself, I do the best cleaning 15 minutes before my guests come over. It gets deadlines happening. Maybe it gets your homework done, presentation, get your room clean before your friend comes over.
Remember cramming for exams.
That's right. Yeah, that stress kind of helped you get motivated. However, too much stress can be harmful to your health physically and, headaches, different things that might be going on with your body, which we're going to go over, and even your mental health. You can experience stress, again, in your body, with your thoughts, and your environment too. If you've got a very stressful environment, and sometimes being a teenager is tough because you're kind of stuck in the house that you live in, the bedroom that you live in, the brothers and sisters that you have. I mean, as adults, we don't have that much that we can change, but we do have the option of changing our environment or fixing our environment a little bit differently. So as teenagers, sometimes that can also be a problem. So what is stressful to some people may have little effect on others. So this picture, for example, it's a teenager that has a hard time um, with anxiety, social anxiety. So if I make eye contact, that's going to be an issue for me. Keep my head down. I need to get away. Stare at my feet. So those types of things come up for us when we're feeling anxious or stressed out in a social setting, and then we start acting a certain way. So different things that can stress us out. When we experience something new or unexpected, when we experience something where we feel vulnerable, and then feeling that you have little control over a situation. I want to go over that a little bit more, Sue.
Yeah, sorry, I was just responding privately to a question.
Oh, no problem. I can handle this then. That's okay.
Sorry.
Experiencing something new or unexpected could be that you're starting a new high school. It could be that your parents are getting a divorce, not something that you expected. Moving, even though you might be moving to a new neighborhood, maybe you'd have a bigger bedroom or live in a better apartment. It is still stressful. Change that is unexpected is a stressor. Experiencing something where you feel vulnerable. So if you break up with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or even friends, and sometimes we kind of break up with our friends.
Yeah, a
Um,
friendship. Yeah.
yeah, not feeling like you fit in, that can be really tough. And I know a lot of times teenagers feel this way, and then adults or parents will be like, well, just don't worry about those people, or don't worry about it, where it's really tough not to worry about it when I see these people every day in math class, or at lunchtime, if I don't sit with them, then I'm sitting by myself.
And I
So
think fitting in is kind of one of those terms, right? That, like, 'cause some of you might think, well, I don't really care if I fit in or not, but it may be just even finding that sort of group of people that you want to connect with, like, or like sort of have things in common with. not necessarily fitting in like with the bigger group or whatever, but just, having a few people that you feel like, you can connect with. Um, even if it's online, right? Some people still feel like, that's their social group, right? Is that they're connecting through, gaming systems, but they still have that social connection, right? So that fitting in is kind of like however you sort of determine what fitting in means to you, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that actually coincides really well with the question with what do you do if your family thinks you're stressed, but I don't think I am. And that's all about that perception. And if you do feel that that's a stressor in your household, then that would definitely be something that I would talk to your parents about to say, I'm feeling okay. What is it that I'm doing? Or what is it that I'm saying that you feel like I'm more stressed than I really am? I'm feeling a little confused. When you put that out there, they might be able to say, hey, you're in your room all the time, or instead of going out with your friends, all you're doing is gaming. And that's not real friendships. You don't even know who's on the other side. So then you can have that conversation and try to be open-minded to what your parents are saying. Hopefully they're going to be open-minded to you as well, because that does bring up a lot of stress, is that lack of communication or not feeling heard. So if you're able to kind of give that to your parents, let them explain what that is, but try to get them to be specific. What is it that I'm doing or I'm saying that you feel I'm stressed out all the time?
Because sometimes we don't recognize stress, especially if we're dealing with sort of that chronic long-term stress. If we've been in a really stressful situation or an environment for a long period of time, that stress level or that high intensity feeling of being stressed becomes sort of like our new normal, and we kind of don't necessarily recognize how maybe we're acting different or sounding different, or maybe how some of our routines have changed. Maybe we're sleeping differently or eating differently or behaving differently. Maybe we fidget, or we can't sit still, or maybe we're just being a little bit more sort of like lazy and kind of less engaged and want to be more by ourselves more than other times. So we may just be behaving differently, and not necessarily aware that maybe somebody else in our family and other people that are close to us may pick up on some of those signs, and you're like, oh, I wasn't really noticing that was becoming a problem for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, and then that feeling you have little control over. So if the home is a little bit chaotic, maybe you have some siblings that are younger or older, or misbehaved or noisy, and you're more of a quiet person, not getting along with your homeroom teacher. You don't have a lot of control over that. Sometimes we have personality conflicts with the adults in our life, and it's like, I have to get along with this person. It's not like I can just switch up, or my grade is not going to be great if we don't connect. This is all kind of stressful stuff. And then what do you do with that stress? Some of you may hold it all in. Others, your heads might pop off. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so we're going to go through the slides. Those of you that are here, what you can do is just put, if you feel comfortable, are we able to have them do a little check or something, Haruka?
Board?
Yep, I'll get that set up in a second.
Perfect. So we're going to go through this, and you can just put a check. No one's going to know who did it. And just put a little check on where what this thing is for you, right? So for example, this is volleyball, but maybe you're a basketball player, or just even joining in, right? That I'm going to meet up with my friends and we're going to shoot some hoops at the school. Would that be a stressor for you? Yes, sometimes, or no? Okay,
Okay.
awesome. Now we got the next one. House party, going over. Maybe this isn't, well, I don't know. This seems like a house party to me. It's a lot of kids in there, especially now.
Yeah,
um,
chilling out
yeah.
at a friend's, right?
Yeah. So hanging out with a friend's house, going to somebody else's house.
Okay. So 50-50, yes and no.
Yeah. And I think that's something to be aware of. And if it's holding you back, that's where if it gets in the way, if it stresses you out, but you're still going, that's okay. If it's getting in the way, when you avoid these things and miss out on social interactions, that's when we're saying the stress is getting in the way. How about raising your hand in class, answering a question,
Getting called on to answer.
or getting called on? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Talking with your parents, having conversations with your parents.
Okay, 50-50. Oh, maybe a little. Oh, interesting. Not so much. That's good. That's good.
So ordering your own food. Okay.
50-50.
This coincides with the question, how do you deal with performance anxiety in school? Um, this kind of stuff as well, it's practicing. So it's making that decision and deciding what am I going to answer, right? When I do have an answer, I'm going to put my hand up. I am going to order my own Tim Hortons and not wait for my friend to do it for me or for my mom to do it. It's those kinds of things. And what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Has anybody answered wrong? Do you think about that for weeks and weeks and think, what a loser? Or do you just think, oh, they answered it wrong. I actually thought it was that as well, and do you move on? So unfortunately, sometimes our stress and our anxiety stops us from doing things, and the best way to deal with it is to do it and be uncomfortable and be comfortable with being uncomfortable and just do it more and more. Okay, so dating, talking to the opposite sex or the same sex, um, talking to somebody that you are into. Okay. Yeah, and some people find this a little more anxiety provoking, and this is part of that social anxiety and performance as well. And it's just practicing. It's homework. Okay, 50-50 there.
So homework.
Organization, getting organized, or time management, however you want to kind of look at that. Okay. All right. So those are just a few things, but the questions of how do I deal with it, it really depends on what the situation is. We will get into some scenarios and we want you to ask those questions because a lot of it is just making a plan. What we tend to do is this is a problem, so I'm going to push it aside. I'm going to avoid it. Or I just struggle through and I don't sit down and ask for help or get myself organized, especially with time management and organization. That goes hand in hand with homework, just getting your life a little more organized. Okay, so some signs of stress. Racing thoughts. What if this happens? What if that happens? I'm going to make a fool of myself. This isn't going to go well. I'll never get my homework done in time. You could feel depressed. You could feel unmotivated. There could be anger involved. And just feeling completely overwhelmed. And do you feel all those things separately? Usually not. Usually all at the same time and kind of intense. So being aware of it, and then what can you do about those things? What can you do to turn the volume down? And sometimes you have to ask for help, get some support through a therapist, counselor, that kind of thing. So the comment here says easier said than done. Can you expand on that? And what is it that you meant by easier said than done?
I believe that was the comment around feeling uncomfortable and taking gradual steps towards situations that sometimes makes us feel uncomfortable when we're feeling anxious or nervous.
Yeah, so what I meant by that is that sometimes we have to kind of face that fear, right? I was building on what Michelle was talking about earlier, that we if we allow our fear to stop us completely, then we're never going to make those steps forward, right? So, but we also can't take big jumps, right? So we kind of have to figure out what is it we want to be able to be doing that we can't do right now. But it's like sort of climbing the steps of a ladder, right? So we have to figure out what are those small little steps that we want to try to take, and then we have to practice those, right? But along with that comes learning about how do I cope with that feeling of anxiety when I'm in that moment. So doing those calm down sort of techniques of distracting my thinking, thinking of something else, doing some deep breathing, having some music, headphones, having something else that I can maybe fidget with in that moment to help me sort of through so that I can feel like I have some success, right? And then gradually the sensitization kind of gets a little bit more comfortable. And then I say, okay, maybe I'm ready to take the next step. So it's never taking that big leap. It's about taking small steps.
Yes. Yeah, and it's feeling comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, right? So if you don't like
Exactly.
those little steps, you're not going to jump into the deep end, right? You're going to take the little steps to eventually get to the deep end. And I'm using that as an example, but depending on what the situation is, you're going to break those things down.
And Bob, if music isn't what's doing it for you, then you have to choose what technique it is that works for you. I mean, it could be listening to an audiobook instead of music. It could be listening to a meditation. It could be listening to something else on headphones that you find calming instead of music. Because you're right, sometimes music can amp people up and kind of get the anxiety kind of juiced up a little bit. So finding something that you can maybe fidget with or hold, or something that you can have in your pocket. Some people carry like small stones or things like that that they can have that they can rub. Um, it's all a matter of personal preference to find what is it that can help you in the moment to sort of deal with those anxious feelings. So when you're trying to make those steps forward, and what we're talking about is, when you start to get those flutters in your chest or butterflies in your stomach, or you feel like your heart's going to pump out of your chest, or you're feeling like you're starting to sweat, or you can't think clearly, right? That anxiety is getting big. So you got to take that and kind of turn that volume down. So what are those things that you normally do to help you to turn down that volume? And it's a very, very personal thing of what you do, and some of the things that you can do to kind of help you to turn that volume down on the stress, right? In the
And
moment.
I think this comes up a lot, especially with teenagers. They're a little more vocal with us with that's not going to work or that's not for me. And I think that's we're just offering suggestions, and doing yoga, listening to music, doing meditation, that stuff doesn't take your problems away. It doesn't give you an extra $500 a month. It doesn't organize your room. It doesn't, get you motivated to do things. But what it does, like Sue was saying, is it turns the volume down on your emotion, your stress, your anxiety. It helps you to be better able to handle those things when they do come up. Because if you feel like you're here and you're barely keeping your head above water, you get a 75% on your exam and you expected to get a 90. Someone didn't text you back, or your friend decides not to invite you to a party, your head pops off because you're already here. So when you're doing things every day, things that make you feel better, things that make you feel calmer, it just lowers the amount of stress. So when life happens, you're better able to deal with it, and you're less likely for your head to pop off so quickly. So those are the things that we're talking about. So lots of questions here.
So I've given some suggestions about the racing thoughts as well. So when you have those racing thoughts, the biggest thing to do is to try and find something to distract your thinking. So it's literally anything that uses your mental power. So, puzzles, reading, counting, any kind of sort of mental games that you can play, or singing, or anything like that. That you can use, anything that uses your brain power, that sort of takes your thoughts away from the thing that you're worrying about and stressing about. And that will help you to sort of move away from stressing about and sort of ruminating about that worry thought.
Mm-hmm. The other thing too is, depending on how often those thoughts come up, it might be the same thought. So if, for example, I say I'm going to fail, what can I say to boss it back, right? To say, is this really true? Let's look at some proof. Who's to say that this is actually happening? In our head, we tend to make things a little bit bigger, especially when we've got high anxiety. What is the proof here that this is going to happen? Let's play that what if game. What if I get a 50% on my exam? What is that going to do? What if my girlfriend breaks up with me? What if my parent gets mad at me? What if? What's going to happen? And then what are some of those things that you can work on? So you can do that proactively, because in the moment, not helpful to be doing this because we're not thinking very straight. But these things that Sue suggested can be helpful in the moment. But we're trying to be a little more proactive and kind of break things down a little bit more, right? And also the question about my dad, was it my dad, or that my parent basically doesn't like me listening to music? So I'm assuming that your parent is probably thinking that you're avoiding, you've got these headphones all the time, you're not talking to me, you're not engaging. So have that conversation with your parent to say, this is what I'm actually doing. I'm listening to my music. So when I have my headphones in, then this is what I'm doing. However, if you're doing it at the dinner table, or if you're always listening to your headphones, it could be a little bit of leave me alone, right? Like, get out of my face. And maybe your parents are saying, I would like to have a conversation with you. So sit down when everybody's calm and kind of talk about that, to say, this is what I'm doing. I got some advice that this is really great and it does help me calm down, but it seems to cause conflict. So can we meet somewhere in the middle?
Yep. Communication has to happen on both sides, guys.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
So, and parents sometimes aren't the greatest. Sometimes they want to just jump in and kind of, tell you how they think you should, sort of solve all your problems of the world, because they think, they're old and they've lived through it, and it's, you know, that's not really helpful. But you know what? What you guys can do is help them to understand how they can help you, right? Give them suggestions, give them some ideas of how they can support you. and see if you can sort of open up that door and conversation by giving them some ideas of saying, you know what, this would be really helpful if you could do this, or if we could work together this way, right? Or that I find this helpful when I'm
Yeah.
feeling stressed. And give them some room to try to move with you a little bit that way, by giving them some suggestions and ideas.
Yes. And the other thing too is going off of what Sue was saying, you could use the "it bugs me when," a bug and a wish. It bugs me when, I wish you would. So just being clear with, this is what's bothering me. As soon as I wake up in the morning, you want to know what I'm doing for my day. You know, it bugs me when you do that. I wish you would give me 15 minutes of downtime and then I will talk to you. Or you could say, this is what I need from you. What do you need from me? But this takes a little bit of thinking and wondering, what is it that I actually need from my parents? And how do I talk to them in a way that they're going to hear me, instead of this always being a blow up fight and then we're screaming at each other and then we never talk about it again. So you do have to bring these things up when everybody's calm, and sometimes we just want to avoid this stuff. So speaking of, how do you react to stress? So we got another poll here. Is this you? Kind of that shutdown? Okay.
I think she just needs to change the poll.
Okay, so everybody's a shutdowner here. Okay. Interesting. I would say that when teenagers and kids shut down, it's a huge trigger for a lot of parents because they want to know why. What's the matter? Tell me about it. Can anybody relate to that? Yes, I'm
Oh, this
assuming
is
to my
this is
question.
me.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
me. I see myself on the screen.
yeah, yeah. So does your head pop off? Are you the one that gets upset? You get quickly triggered? Okay, so
It's
not
50-50.
50-50 here. Yeah, and
And
sometimes you shut
sometimes
down.
different situations, right? Different situations you may react differently. Depends what's going on.
Or freeze. Are you like a deer in headlights? You don't talk, you don't know what to do.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
All right, so we have a little video here to explain that fight or flight or freeze.
It's really helpful for you guys to understand sort of what's happening with your body, eh?
Mm-hmm.
This is a good video.
You know what anxiety feels like. We
Can
all
you see
do.
this, Sue?
Everyone experiences anxiety in some way or another. It's
Okay.
something that connects all of us together. Why we feel anxiety and what it really is, that may surprise you. Without anxiety, we'd all be in serious trouble. As soon as your brain senses you're in danger, a little piece of it, called the amygdala, kicks in. It gets your body ready to react. That could mean fight, run away, or shut down. It's called the fight, flight, or freeze response. This reaction goes back millions of years to our distant animal ancestors. Animals whose amygdalae were more sensitive to danger were more likely to stay alive and off the menu. Over millions of generations, this developed into the system we all know as anxiety. So you see, anxiety itself is not all bad. But when there's no immediate life or death threat, and your amygdala keeps telling your body that you're in danger, that's when anxiety becomes a problem. Your amygdala doesn't know the difference between getting eaten and public speaking or failing a test. Human society has only existed for a relatively short time. It's messy and complicated and confusing. and our amygdalae just haven't had time to catch up. So sometimes, when we're in uncomfortable situations, our brains misread the risk and overreact. Our hearts beat faster and we breathe heavily, pulling more oxygen into our bodies. The muscles in our arms and legs tense up and fill with blood. Our skin perspires to cool us down. This would all be great if we needed to fight or run, but instead, we just feel tense and sweaty. Sometimes our minds go blank and we feel like we can't move or talk. That would be great if we needed to hide. Instead, we just feel stuck. When things trigger our anxiety, sometimes we try to avoid them, like our ancestors avoiding a predator. But that can cause problems when those triggers are important parts of life, like going to school or meeting new people, things that won't just give up and go away. So how does knowing all this help? Well, it starts with remembering what's really going on. There's nothing physically wrong with you. It's just your amygdala trying to tell you it thinks you're in danger, even if it gets confused about how much danger you're really in. Understanding why we feel anxiety is an important step in learning to manage it.
I think we just lost one of our facilitators here, so we'll get started as soon as Michelle is back.
Oh my goodness. Did anybody have any questions?
Sue, if you're okay with continuing, I'm okay with that as well. Feel free to.
I am fine. I just wondered if anybody had any questions about the video. No?
I don't see any coming in. I think we're good for now.
Okay, good. Okay. So, stress on overdrive. So, when your stress response is on overdrive, it can wear and tear on your body and it can feel as though you're in that constant state of fight or flight. So, this was what we were talking about when we have that chronic sort of long term, like we're always, stressed about something going on in our life, right? So, our bodies just start to sort of take that on as that new sort of normal where our bodies are just always feeling very stressed. And when we think about, when was the last time we actually felt calm? And what does calm actually feel like anymore? Are you able to even sort of connect with feeling calm and relaxed, and what would you do to feel calm and relaxed? And if you're not able to sort of connect with that side of things, then maybe stress is really kind of taking over. And again, sometimes we don't notice and we're not aware of sort of how it's really affecting us, right? So when we're in that state, we don't really feel, the response is very helpful and it doesn't motivate us or push us, to sort of do anything, right? Our problem solving ability goes down the toilet. So when we're really stressed all the time, it's hard for us to try and get motivated to do anything. It's hard for us to try and sort of sort things out. We feel overwhelmed. It's just, problems are too big. It's like one more thing, one more thing. I just want to just crawl under a blanket and say, kind of, I'm done, right? So pressure can make us feel very unable to cope if it's that chronic sort of long term, right? So this is what we're talking about is this is the kind of stress that has a very poor effect on your body as well, right? So your heart and your lungs and your muscles and just your sleep habits and just your well-being overall and your mental health, that chronic long-term stress, that overdrive all the time, it's just really not good for you. So we've got to find those ways to try and figure out how do we get ourselves out of some of those situations and deal with some of those intense stressors. Some of them we can't. Sometimes we have stressors in our lives that are big and intense and very heated, that are very out of our control, right? So, but how do we cope with them, right? So we have to find those ways to manage and cope. You want to add anything to that, Michelle?
That was fantastic. I was stressed out myself because I X'd myself out of here completely, so I had to come back in. Oh boy. So we've got some videos here that are helpful for you to take a look at. As there's a lot of things that you can do to cope, like Sue was saying. So some of these videos can be helpful. Do you want to leave this as a resource, or did you want to watch one or two, Sue?
I think it would be good to watch maybe one or two of them.
Sure. Okay, I'm just clicking on it, right?
I don't think you need to. I think
Oh, I
Harutha
will.
will.
Yeah, I can change it up. Are we feeling 12 coping skills today or the sensory coping skills?
Maybe the sensory
Sure.
coping.
Let's try that one.
Never in the history of calming down has anyone calmed down by being told to calm down. If we can't force ourselves into calming down, how do we do it? The autonomic nervous system controls our stress response. This is the fight, flight, freeze response. And it also controls the relaxation response, which is known as rest and digest. But we can't easily control this part of our nervous system with just our thoughts. So instead of trying to think ourselves calm, one effective approach to turn on calm is to access your nervous system through your body. Hey guys, Emma here. Just wanted to let you know that this video is one segment from my much more in-depth course on coping skills and self-care. The course is on udemy.com and there's a link in the description with a coupon code where you can get a massive discount. So if you want to learn more coping skills or ways to manage your emotions when they're really intense, check out the link in the description. Okay, back to the video. Your mind and body are closely connected, and just like your brain can trigger your body to be anxious by thinking these worrisome thoughts, your body can also trigger your brain to be calm through sensory soothing. When I've had a long day doing therapy and parenting my 3 tiny children, I often feel really tense and pretty exhausted. It seems like throughout the day that stress just builds and builds. But one of my favorite things to do after the children go to bed is to take a steaming hot bath. During a long soak, my muscles soften, my mind relaxes, and gosh, I just feel calmer just thinking about it right now. Something about the feel of hot water triggers that calming reaction. This is my favorite form of sensory soothing. Sensory soothing is an important part of calming the emotions from a bottom-up approach. By using sights, smells, your sense of touch or hearing, you can turn on the calming part of your nervous system and soothe your brain. Then, once you're calm, you can choose words and actions that are going to be more helpful. So this is called sensory soothing, and these can be effective coping skills for when you're upset. They can help you get centered, slow things down, and you can come back to a problem when you're calm. One of my students just shared this example. I have a long commute, but I travel with an old wash tub, a nice bar of soap, a gallon of water, and a washcloth. On the long ride, I take a break to wash my hands and face. The smell of the soap, the coolness of the water, and the old tub remind me of home. It's simple, it's calming, and it is enough. Here are some examples of sensory coping skills. Smell. Slowly smell a favorite scent. cinnamon, vanilla, perfume. You can use an essential oil diffuser or put a drop into a diffuser necklace or a piece of paper. Put on some scented lotion. Use an essential oil. Use a bath bomb to make a scented bath. Touch. Hold a warm rice pack or heating pad. Take a hot bath. Shower in the dark. Pet an animal. Wash your face with very cold water. Hold an ice cube and notice what cold feels like. Or you can feel a comfortable texture. So this is like a child holding a blanket or an adult holding a rosary. Or you could try rubbing something smooth like a stone or a piece of satin. Taste. Drink a hot drink slowly. Or eat a small treat slowly, savoring the taste. Sound. Go someplace very quiet and sit very still. Go for a walk by yourself with headphones on, listening to music you love. Body movement, also known as proprioceptive. Go for a walk, exercise or play a sport. Stretch your muscles. Do one yoga pose. Swing on a swing set. Rock in a rocking chair. Or you can step outside for a breath of fresh air. Check out the 2 exercises included with this section, taking a hot shower in the dark and the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. After that, we're going to move on to relaxing coping skills.
Okay. So the first video was great, but what we'll do is maybe we can go back to it when we've kind of gone through the presentation. If we have some time, then we can go back to it.
Sue, your mic is muted.
Say that it was muted. But can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Hear
So
me now?
I think at this point, what we want to do is think of a situation that has come up for you, or what are those things in general that kind of stress you out? And I thought we could do a little situation where let's think of some problem solving. Let's work on that. So, what do you guys think? What would be something that we could talk about? We could brainstorm. We could even practice having a conversation between child and parent. Sue is a really good teenager. She's really good at, being like a teenager. I could be the parent and we can have a conversation to open up conversation. So you can have those, open up those difficult conversations with your parents. What do you guys think? Is there any suggestions on what you would like some help with? Okay, so stressing over not getting high marks. So I think in general, if we can generalize this a little bit, maybe just even doing well um, at school, because everybody's got different reasons for, or maybe a high mark for somebody would be a 75, somebody else wants to get 95s. Um, so we want to do well at school, and this is a stressful situation. So, what are the things that get in the way of you feeling like you're in control and you're doing well at school? So, is it a certain topic? Is it lack of organization? Is it that your time management is not good? So, anybody have any ideas as far as what are some of those things that get in the way to feeling confident about that?
Or is it the subject matter itself?
Yes.
Can you guys give us some ideas? What's
Virtual learning, motivation. Okay. So when we look at virtual learning, is there some way that you guys can pull something up so we can type in? I want to be able to write on something. Can you pull something up for me?
Michelle, feel free to use the box that's right underneath you.
The notes? Okay. All right. So virtual learning. What gets in the way with virtual learning? The thing that comes up for me is location and routine. Where are you doing this? If you're laying on your bed, you're not going to be very motivated to get in there. Are you somewhere where it's really noisy and you've got siblings kind of all over the place? So, what are some suggestions as far as your location? So, what would be something that you could do to make your location a little more stress-free or a little more conducive to learning and not being distracted? Any ideas?
Yep, perfect.
Anybody else have any? I think also what you could do is put a sign on your door. Um, I know for me, what I tend to do is I call my daughter to do something, unload the dishwasher, and she's like, I'm I'm in the middle of class right now. Just because I'm home, it doesn't mean that I could just come downstairs and unload the dishwasher, right? So sign on door for when you are actually doing something virtually, and kind of communicate before maybe you start a class or when you really need some quiet. Routine. So what would help? Why would a routine be helpful? Sue, why is a routine helpful?
Well, it helps you sort of stay on task, right?
Yeah.
Lets me know what I need to get done and when.
The other thing is it gets you organized. If you if you're not organized, what happens next? How long does it take me? I need a shower. you know, um, especially during the pandemic. When you're staying in your jams all day, you haven't had a shower, you're just kind of feeling in that mood of just chilling out and not doing anything. So that becomes an issue because I feel better when I get dressed, all the way down to my shoes. Maybe to my socks, whatever that is. Getting up and getting ready gets you started. And if you're not going to school and you're staying home, missing that part of your routine can be bad. Or I'm going to wait until 5 minutes before my class starts because all I have to do is roll out of bed. I don't have to put my video on. and I can listen, but I haven't woken up. I haven't eaten anything. That can be an issue. So having a routine and setting a time of how much time do I need might be helpful. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you're good there. The organization piece that I typed in at the bottom was more about, do I have the stuff that I need? Like, do I have my materials? Right? Do I have my books? Do I have markers? Do I have the supplies that I need? Like, you know.
And motivation. So, what motivates you? Is it grades? Is it hearing from your teacher or from your parents that you're doing a good job? Um, what else is motivating you? I mean, why are you taking math? Maybe you're taking math because you would like to get a job at Tim Hortons, and you definitely need to know math to get a job at Tim Hortons. So, what do you value? What motivates you to do that thing?
I noticed that a couple of people have typed in some questions and comments about a couple of other things, and you know, it's stress and anxiety are not always the same thing. So some of you guys might be dealing with some anxiety. And it's okay to maybe say, that maybe I need to talk to a professional, to maybe get some extra help to work through some specific fears that I may have. And I know that, one of you has talked specifically about a conversation you had with your dad. And I think that, those kinds of conversations can be really tough. And you may need to have some help to help him understand where your point of view is coming from, and maybe some help to support you as well through your own sort of discovery, right? But he may not understand where you're coming from and understand the situation. So there needs to be a little bit of sort of that, sort of back and forth, but asking for help and asking for support through some of these tough times and tough struggles, these are all very real and very valid for you guys. But sometimes you can't do it alone. So I really wanted to put that out there, that there are places where you can reach out to get help. And I know that, Haruka, you have something on here, right, about the support places for the kids to reach out to?
Yes, it's hidden under the note there, but it is there. Feel free to let us know if you like us to send that privately through a chat. Also, OurSpace website has a bunch of supports for youth and families that they can access as well.
Wonderful. So really reach out, guys, through some of those supports, and check them out, because asking for help can be a really big step, to feeling like you have some supports in place for yourselves through some of these tough spots. Okay.
For sure. So did you guys find this helpful of trying to kind of figure out what the boundaries are that you have to kind of set for yourself, try to reframe your thinking, organize yourself a little bit more, so that piece of really trying to get good grades or doing well in school, what are the things that get in the way of that, right? So this is one way that you can do that, is how do I get organized? How do I ask for help? Is there anything else that you guys would like us to work on or practice, or we can watch that video for the last 5 minutes, because there's some really good tips in there.
Do you want to watch the 12 coping? Is that the one you wanted to watch, Michelle?
Yeah.
You know, the other day I was looking up what coping skills were on Urban Dictionary, and it kind of surprised me and made me laugh. I even printed it off and shared it with my patients because I think it's the one thing I address the most in my groups, and it's probably one of those cliche words that drives people nuts. And a lot of people think coping skills are only for if you have a mental illness, that it's something to deal with mental illness. But coping skills are really something that should be present in a positive mental health. One of my favorite analogies is that we should all have like a coping toolbox. In a sense, a set of tools of different things we can use in different situations. Now, a coping toolbox is really a collection of go-to resources in one spot where you can try different things for different situations. No one coping skill is going to do the job all the time. One of the most important things to add something into your daily routine to make it a habit is to have it easily accessible. So my coping toolbox is more of a bag. It's where I keep all my stuff together so my wife doesn't get mad at me. She doesn't like stuff laying around the house. And it's also been a very convenient way to have a go-to spot to keep all my stuff. Probably one of the most important coping tools that I have is actually this notebook right here. This notebook, I always bring it to my groups. I constantly show my patients how important this has been for me. It's where I can write all my things down, all my ideas. It's where I even write down different coping skills and strategies that I want to try. But really what it provides is an opportunity for me to clear my mind, think about other things, and be able to just focus on the present if I'm distracted. With that comes my two favorite utensils. Kind of is a fidget. I find myself doing this clicketing thing all the time, that thing that probably annoys you if you're on an airplane. I think in a lot of ways, even coffee can be a coping tool. I practically always carry a set of earplugs with me. I have a gift from a friend that I graduated OT school with, and that is 300 writing prompts. I also find writing in the daily prompt book helpful for resetting my mind. It was not too long ago I was pretty frustrated, so I went home and I took a break and I just wrote a daily prompt, and by the time I was done, I felt a lot better. But if I ever get in those times where I really don't want to write, that's where it's handy to have a writer's block. And this is another gift I was given by a very special friend and family member. This is called the writer's block. No matter what type of creative person you are, or whatever way you express your creativity, or even if you don't consider yourself a creative person, I think it's helpful to have other ways to practice different skills. I'm not much of a drawer, but this gives me an opportunity to draw when I don't feel like writing. It literally looks like a wood block, hence writer's block. I find it helpful to have sort of a fiction enjoyable book with maybe a more educational book. And I think reading can be a very good coping skill for a lot of people. I find it very handy to have a calendar to plan out your day, make lists, and even write down when a coping skill could be useful to you. Another example of a coping tool or even a strategy is I have a clipboard, which I find just convenient to put stuff on. Also on it is a grid of the Covey grid, a time management tool, or to give myself a better idea of where things fit into different priorities. Post-it notes, I find post-it notes incredibly helpful because, well, you can write things down on them, but you can leave yourself notes. And as you saw on that time management grid, I used small little post-it notes to write myself things to do. Did you know a post-it note is almost like a perfect square, which means that it makes really great origami. And origami is a great coping skill or coping tool. More on the fidget side of coping skills, or coping tools if you will, I had a Rubik's Cube that I kept on my backpack during OT school, and that was quite a fun fidget, especially as I was having a hard time staying awake during class. I would take it out and sometimes try to solve it. And it did work a little bit, not as much as coffee helped, but it did help a little bit.
those were awesome ideas. Great video.
Yeah, great. It was a great video. Just that simple stuff that just helps turn the volume down. And then if you've got to problem solve things, then that's when you're going to break things down. It's going to be reaching out to your parents, reaching out to a counselor or somebody at school, kind of knowing who your supports are if you're needing more help with that.
I'd like to ask a quick question to the group. I know this isn't a formal thing and there's only a few of you here, and it's something that Michelle and I had just kind of talked about, but we were just curious to ask you guys if you found, number one, if you found this useful today, and number two, if you think you would find something like this to be useful to do as like a small group over a course of a few weeks to have like a little bit of a class. Can you just let us know like a yes or a no if you think it would be useful to do more sessions? Thanks, Haruka. Okay.
Thanks for your
Great. Thank
honesty.
you very much.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well, I hope that was a start to your coping. I know that there is some questionnaires at the end. We want to know your feedback, things that were helpful, and yeah, just taking it one step at a time.
Thanks for Michelle. Thanks for everyone for staying around till the very end. I will have the resource page up soon, and I'll send the link out to everyone as well, where you'll be able to access the recordings as well as the other resources that Sue and Michelle has shared. If you have any feedback, feel free to let us know as well. And if you have any other topic suggestions that you would find helpful to be offered through OurSpace, or if you change your mind about finding this helpful, feel free to email us at engage@linwoodcharlton.ca, and we would love to hear from you and around what you would find helpful during this time.
Absolutely.
All right.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue and Michelle.
Bye.
Thank you.
And thanks, everyone.